Beautiful being, is it time to step into your power? All right, I just got off my yoga mat and I have some gems for you. By the end of this video, you're going to have some skills to learn how to step into your power even more on this awakening and ascension journey. This really rocked my world. Came through while I was on the meditation mat after doing some yoga. So my name's Rebecca Abraxas. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell and join this tribe where you're never alone and around weird and crazy awakening and ascension things, where we are remembering our greatness together. As a tribe, we go live every Friday. So be sure to click the bell. It's a different time every time. Right, so let's dive in. Stepping into your own power. What came to me today was the sense of responsibility. Taking back responsibility. So what occurred to me on my yoga mat is that I'm letting some other things and people be responsible for certain areas of my life. And it was like, what? So guys, what we have to do is really take back our responsibility. Be 100%, 1000% responsible for our lives. So if your life is not showing up exactly how you want it to be, take back some more responsibility. The more responsibility you take back, guess what happens? The more power you have, right? That seems to make sense to me. So to do that with ease, we have to let go of the responsibility we're putting on our parents, our mother and father, our childhood, the responsibility we're putting on our partners or teachers we've had, the responsibility we're putting on our president and political system, the responsibility we're putting on the medical system, our home, where we live, right? Our kids. Our happiness, inner peace, and an ability to manifest in our lives and work with this new 5D consciousness is our responsibility. It is no one else's. Whether we shift to a different timeline, whether we visit the new earth, whether we elevate in dimensions, it's all our responsibility, okay? And it's our responsibility to start putting these higher frequencies and higher consciousnesses into the collective, so that this 3D collective is going to expand into a 5D collective. And we can do our part by doing this. What I'm saying is taking your responsibility back and stepping into your power and expanding your consciousness. So what do we do now? Get into receiving mode. So the first part, number one, is take back your responsibility, step up your power. And number two is get into receiving mode. How do we do that? Receiving mode is on the top of the emotional guidance scale. It is the frequency of our highest self. It is the frequency of inner peace and joy. And it's the frequency of just knowing and awareness. It's the frequency of just beingness, okay? So if we can get to that space daily, we're doing pretty good. We're receiving. And so if we take back our responsibility and we step up our power and we start sending rockets of desire and lots of asks, right? Then all we have to do is get into receiving mode. So one of my biggest asks of the universe is inner peace and to live in an ascended state on the planet, in this body. That's kind of my biggest thing here. And I want to be an uplifter, and I want to be a content creator offering value and helping others on this journey, on this awakening and ascension journey, have more ease with the journey, okay? Have some revelations with the journey, right? Have aha moments where they're like, oh, I don't have to suffer through this. So those are my biggest asks these days. And how do I get into receiving mode? It's just being the joy of that manifesting, okay? Being the joy that I'm doing this and being this and having this right now in my life. So the law of vibration says that what we are, we attract. So it makes sense that if you're willing to get into receiving mode, that it's kind of already there. And that's why it's already there. Because if you make a request or a demand of the universe, you are the frequency already, right? The job is to be vibrating that already so that what you are, you attract. And it's not really that you're attracting it like a magnet. And it's not like there's someone high up in the universe saying, I see that person doing it the right way, here you go. It's not like that at all. It is just basically molecules vibrating, creating more molecules vibrating in that same way, and it creates more of that reality. So it's kind of like an inside job. When you are vibrating, right, at a certain frequency, and it just creates more of itself the more focused you are there. So it's not really something coming to you, it's something you're expanding. That is your power, and that's the power of receiving. It's you're in receiving mode because you're willing to receive other things that are that same frequency, but it's really an expansion from your highest self, from the receiving mode energy. And when you're in receiving mode of energy and you're like this, all of a sudden that's expanding, that's expanding, that's expanding. And then your source self gets to experience things that are vibrating on that same level. So, what does the source through you want to be experiencing in physical reality? And you get to decide. That's your power. So, it's really potent to take the responsibility of all that. Can you see that? So, I have a husband who works really hard, and I do this type of work. I do content creation, and I do music for seniors, and I do energy sessions and sound healing. And his work brings in more financial rewards, I guess to say, financial reality. And I kind of just coast along on that. Well, I bring in what I bring in, but part of me is like, wow, I want to take that responsibility. I want the responsibility for my financial reality. And I've noticed that I was kind of like, well, I'm attracting money through that vortex, right? And that could be one way. But part of me is like, I'm going to take my responsibility of my financial reality. And I'm kind of curious if I took that responsibility, if more would expand in my reality around uh, finances. This is where I was playing with today and taking my responsibility back from some of the things in my marriage that I kind of place on my husband, and even beyond finances. Parenting, our relationship with our kids, how we go about, just connecting and communing. Kind of put a lot of that responsibility on him, and I was kind of like blown away with how much that it was almost like a really dense energy in my field. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this back and I'm going to be responsible for all of that. And now let's see what I can create from there. So that's how I'm working with this energy in my day today. So let me know in the comments, where do you feel like you can take some responsibility back so that you could get that more aligned with your receiving mode and see what that creates in the manifesting world for you. So let me know in the comments and let me know how this is landing for you. For me, it was just like, sometimes I get off my meditation pill. I'm like, oh my gosh, revelation. And I wonder if it's a revelation for anyone else. I don't know. But it makes so much sense to me that if I'm willing to take the responsibility back from that, then I get to create something different and maybe even more conscious. So expanding consciousness for me is not about, a new vacation, a better car, a better house. Expanding consciousness and getting and receiving and manifesting mode is living more in alignment with my sovereign source self and having this inner peace and having this flow of consciousness just come through. So expanding consciousness brings awareness of where we have denser frequencies sitting in our field. And I think that's what happened today, that It helped me become aware that, oh, this is a dense frequency, this sense of responsibility I'm putting on my husband. And because when you give responsibility to someone else, what's happening? There's something inside you that doesn't believe you can do it, that doesn't believe you can create it, that doesn't believe that you're enough to have it, right? Yeah. So all that not enoughness, let's just remove that out of our field. Let's do a little access consciousness clearing. Let's clear the energy. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyond. So we want to clear dense energy in our field. To step into our power, to have expanded consciousness, to step into a different timeline, to really live 5D reality, it requires us to release the density. A lot of us have already done the shadow work of releasing density from childhood trauma, or we're working on that. And then there's adult trauma, right? The things that we've experienced through the years as an adult. And now there's awakening and ascension trauma, right? Sometimes it's moving so fast and so quick, like we're almost pummeled. We feel like we can't even go about our day. Has that ever happened to you? Do you ever felt like in your awakening and ascension process, like you can't even move out of your bed? You're so exhausted, or yeah, so all of this happens, and all trauma is too much too soon. Too much too soon, right? And it's just, you can't process it. So if something intense happens, so you'll notice that some people go through intense things, and some people don't have trauma from it, and other people go through intense things and have severe trauma from it. And it might have to do with our processing system. Some people can process the energy quicker, and so it's not too much too soon. This doesn't stress their body out, doesn't stress their energetic or their nervous systems out. And other people, they seem to process it slower, and it builds up. It's too much happening all at once. They can't process it, and it becomes trauma. That's all really trauma is unprocessed energy. And so some of us, so like, you see some people's lifestyles and you're like, oh my God, I would totally be traumatized by that if I lived that every day. Your processing system wouldn't wouldn't clear it out fast enough, so that'd be trauma. And you see it in dogs. Dogs can process things. They shake it off. They do their downward dog, and that stuff's out of there. But if they're living in a domestic life in a sick environment, they can't process it enough. They get sick, they get cancer, right? So guys, how do we become quicker processors? Meditate, vocal toning, right? Going for walks in nature, being able to manage your vibrational gap. Okay, there's lots of things on this channel about helping you process energy. And so as adults in our awakening and ascension journey, we can up our ability to process energy so it doesn't stick us as trauma. But back then, before we knew all that, like sometimes all this intensity, we couldn't process it. So now we have to work with it. And it's the same way. How do we work with trauma energy that's been sitting there in a while? We meditate, we vocal tone with it, we go for walks, we journal. Maybe you go through some therapy sessions, some energy healing. You do clearing. You clear the density. Clear the density. So before we learn how to be really good processors of energy, we have to clear that density up. Okay? And as we clear the density, we lighten up, we raise our cork up, we live in our true essence, we become wonderful receivers, and we raise the consciousness and expand the consciousness in our lives and on the planet. This is how we step into our power. So let me know if you have any questions about that. And so I know some people have a very hard time meditating. And so before I leave here today, I wanted to give you three little tidbits about how to meditate. Just some strategies to be able to meditate without feeling like you're not doing it right. And honestly, there's no way to do meditation right. Okay? It's, are you willing to give yourself 5, 15, 20 minutes of stillness, just being with yourself. That's it. If the mind starts activating, that's okay. And you just notice. But here's 3 things that may help to end with here. Number 1 is meditate and just follow your breath. So you're breathing in, you're breathing out. Just become aware of the breathing in and the breathing out. And that focus will help you sit still for 5 to 10 to 20 minutes. Okay. And number 2 is notice the sounds around you. Okay. So it might seem like it's really, really quiet, but all of a sudden you're tuning in, you might hear the clock ticking. You might hear the house settling. You might hear a bird outside. Tune into all those subtle sounds. That gives you just this moment of just sitting in stillness. And number 3 is if you notice that your mind is just running, monkey mind, just do a little visualization. Imagine every thought gets put in a bubble and floats away. Okay? The thoughts are not a problem when you meditate. It's fine. It's just that when you are meditating, you just don't want to engage in them. Okay? You don't want to keep going down the to-do list, right? So as the thought comes up, put it in a bubble, let it float away. Oh, another one comes, put it in a bubble, let it float away. So meditating is such a good tool for stepping into our power, for learning how to take responsibility, for tuning into our higher self, for manifesting, for managing trauma, that dense energy. It's a go-to, right? And then I add vocal toning with any meditation that I'm doing, which is after meditating, I chant Om for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, okay? Or I'm aware of a sound that wants to come through. And so I'll do another video about vocal toning for getting in the receiving mode. Which brings me to a really exciting announcement is that I have a brand new online course called Vocal Toning for Manifesting. And I just got finished putting it together and editing. It's over on Teachable. The link is in the descriptions. I think it's an awesome journey that I put people through to learn how to do vocal toning to manage that gap. This is a course for people that have done personal practice, that have manifested things in their life, but they feel like they've plateaued. They're in a bit of a rut, right? They feel stuck. And so we work with that stuck energy. We look at the vibrational gap and we manage it, and we get you to your vortex energy with your own voice. So if that's interesting to you, please look at the description, go over to Teachable and check it out. And if you know someone that it could really serve, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with them. Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day and step into that power even more. See you Friday.